Hi guys, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Resident _of Collinwood for BitChute. And I'm here to continue my read-along adventure of John Philip Betancourt's continuing blog series, The Return of Dark Shadows, Series 12, Chapter 6, Blood of an Heiress. Rage grows inside the heart like a wild vine. It encircles the body and wraps every organ tightly until it cuts off the oxygen and kills every emotion, every feeling, every hope, every dream. Barnabas Collins has felt this rage. He's been in love and in hate with others, with himself, with his whole existence since the day the witch Angelique turned his life upside forever. Now he has returned to the beginning of a journey he started 5 decades ago in hopes this time to save the generation of family members he saw as the catalyst of so much turmoil for the future of the Collins family in the year 2019 and beyond. For Barnabas, his return to Collinsport in 1966 was about the fate of the lives of his loved ones in the future, his adopted daughter Sophie, his biological daughter Claudia, and his grandchild John Michael, but not, it seemed, one woman standing in his way. At the Collinsport Inn bar, the clock struck a hefty midnight chime. Arabella Boozley laughed and giggled with a group of people at the table who were in town for the night on their way to Canada to vacation. She was happy and telling stories of her life, though drink after drink that this party of travelers happily paid for. To them, she was some sort of celebrity. Her life was fascinating and glamorous, and like the life of a great movie star, money, loves, loss, pain, and redemption. The group continued to laugh and carry on in the bar as the clock continued to click away, the minutes to half past midnight. When the lobby clock chimed again, hinting at the late hour to the guest, I really should get myself back up to my room. I've taken up a lot of your time. Please let me at least pay for my last drink, Arabella told the glowing group in a drunk voice. No, please, it's been our pleasure. Please let us take care of this, a woman in the group said, pulling the tab from Arabella's hands. It really has, Miss Stoddard. Thank you for the wonderful conversation, a man said, the husband of the woman. A third man, single, was smitten with the fiery-haired Arabella. She was charming, witty, and something about her spoke to him. His fellow travelers could tell, too, and decided to pay the tab, giving Arabella and the man some alone time. Could I take you up to your room? The third man asked. He was younger and much more handsome and very single. Arabella's eyes were glassy. She smirked and could tell exactly what this gorgeous man really wanted, and it wasn't to escort her up to her comfy room and then just come back down to his boring brother and his wife. Well, that would be very kind, Arabella said as she took his hand and he helped her from the table. The two beautiful strangers cuddled all the way up the stairs to the third floor, then turned a corner where Arabella tripped on a rug and fell into the man's arms. Their eyes met. Arabella leaned back and the man placed a deep kiss on her lips as Arabella began to melt deeper into his body. Let's hurry, Arabella said. The two giggled and quickly made it to the third floor elevator that would take them to the sixth and top floor where Arabella's suite was. Sweet. As they arrived, Arabella opened the eggshell painted room and flipped on the lamps in the corner of her suit. She smiled and removed her coat and threw it to the bed. I'm just going to freshen up. Why don't you make us another drink? Arabella said as she slowly stepped into the adjoining bathroom. Arabella looked at her face. It was a pure pink. She smiled and seemed very pleased with herself. She adjusted her eye makeup in the reflection of the mirror and pulled out a lip balm from a bag she had placed on the sink and refreshed her lipstick, a shiny, sexy pink rose. She stood back and posed again, pleased with what she was looking at. She fluffed her thick red hair and quickly unbuttoned the top two buttons of her blouse and opened the bathroom door. The entire room suite was pitch black. Arabella was startled at first when she had stepped into the bathroom. She had left the man in the room with all the lights on. Why did he turn them off? Hey, Arabella said, trying to get the man's attention. She slowly turned the corner to go back into the bedroom and saw the man was already laying on the bed. Arabella could make out his strong, big body in silhouette. Oh, man of mystery, Arabella said to the man in the dark, but he did not respond. Are you going to just lay there, or are you going to come over here and help me unbutton some more of these buttons? She said, teasing him, but the man again did not respond. Hello? Hey, I'm standing right here, she said again to no response. Arabella looked confused. She didn't understand why he wasn't moving over to her. She slowly walked over to the lamp and switched it on, and when she turned back and saw the face of a dead man, Arabella gasped in shock. Her date was pale. His face was frozen in a terrible twisted gaze, with eyes glazed over and lacking all signs of life. His neck was bleeding. There was blood coming out of two wounds and pulling on the blood bedspread in the dark crimson puddles. Oh my God, Arabella said, slowly making her way to the dead body. She could not understand what was happening. How was he dead like this? What did this? As Arabella quickly turned back around to reach for the phone to call the front desk, a large, shadowy figure leaped out in front of her, pulled her body around, and put their hand around her mouth. It was Barnabas Collins. You've made a big mistake, he said coldly, the blood of Arabella's male visitor still fresh on his tongue. Arabella's breathing began to slow. Her heart began to pump the blood faster and faster all through her body. She could feel the cold hands around her mouth, like two strong pieces of ice, clasping her lips shut. I'm going to release my hands from you, and you will not be able to scream or speak. Do not worry, this will only be temporary, Barnabas said. He released his hand, and Arabella quickly turned around and saw him for the first time, face to face. She tried to scream, but nothing came out of her mouth. She backed away, but Barnabas moved forward. She grabbed a large lamp that was to her right on a dresser and threw it at Barnabas, who in turn lifted his hands and froze the lamp in midair. He then moved his arm down, and the lamp slowly came back down to the dresser without a single shatter. Arabella's eyes were like giant saucers What was she seeing? How did he do that? Her heart was pounding in her eyes. Her life was flashing before her eyes as she continued to walk backwards away from the approaching man she met hours earlier at Collingwood, the approaching man who needed another taste of blood. You are a sideshow and an interruption, Miss Stoddard. Someone who is stepping in my way and in of the plans that I have been working on and through for a very long time. That is a very dangerous place to be. I fully understand that, Barnabas explained as Arabella's eyes began to shed tears that went down her face and destroyed the makeup she had just refreshed. What is about to happen to you has never happened before, and I never felt good about it. Never. Not once. It's just a part of a curse, something that happened to me that has allowed me over time and space and has affected my family for generations. Even your precious niece Carolyn, Miss Stoddard. You're about to die in the worst way, Barnabas said. Arabella screamed again, her voice mute by Barnabas's powerful energy that blocked all sound to come from her. He was now just inches from Arabella, who was concerned. She reached out her arms and braced herself against the green and white wallpaper of her hotel suite's walls. She opened her mouth and screamed again. Nothing. Her tears were now all over her face. Barnabas's eyes turned black. He opened his mouth, revealing the sharpest fangs and red, bloody tongue, stained by blood from his first victim. He lunged at Arabella and pulled her body close and sunk his teeth deep into her soft flesh, allowing her blood to flow freely into his mouth, finally quenching the thirst after years trapped in the coffin. And within moments, Arabella was dead. The night of death and darkness are confusing and the night and death of darkness of confusion and confessions turned into a brilliant morning of sun and warmth of spring. The daylight shined down on Victoria Winter's face in a pattern that showed the source of the light came from a barred-off window. India, still inside Victoria's body, opened her eyes and took a deep breath, almost as if it was the first time she had ever breathed, a deep, two-lunged breath. She tried to get off the bed she was on, but her arms and legs were tired to the metal rails that kept her safely in place while she slept. Thanks to the sedative Julia had her orderlies inject her into her veins along with Justin's. India looked around. Even though she knew she was at Wincliffe, she had no idea for how long. Was it just hours? Was it days? Or worse, weeks? Her head was pounding, a side effect of the deep sleep she had been in for the mysterious amount of time. While looking around her Wincliffe room, she saw a small medicine connected to her fingers. The that recorded her heart rate. It beeped every 3 seconds, and, unknowing to India, indicated when she was awake. Then her door opened. Don't worry, the foggy feeling you're sensing will wear off soon, Julia said as she sat down on a chair next to India in the bed. How long have I been here? India asked. Just over a night. I wouldn't keep you asleep for very long. We have much to discuss, Julia continued as she pulled out a pad and paper from a briefcase she had to her side. Now let's begin at exactly where you left off. You mentioned to me last night about how you don't feel like you're in the correct body. India rolled her eyes. She was frustrated and angry. Nothing she had told Julia made her believe it. Nothing she had to say was making it clear that there was a deep danger in Collinsford, a town just hours away that Julia needed to help stop. It was a devastating reality, and India could not believe her predicament. No, that's not what I meant. Please, you have to let me out of here. You have to release me. India pressed. Now, I can't do that, can I, Vicky? Or would you prefer I call you India? Julia asked. My name is India do Archo, and I do not belong here. You have to start to listen to me. India said, her voice seeming to grow louder with anger. India, very well. Listen, I cannot let you out. You're clearly going through a very powerful psychiatric breakdown, and I need to make sure you're taken care of. It's obvious to me that the things you're saying are very real to you. You really believe them. The sensations can often feel as if they are really happening all around you, when in reality the psychosis is only making you believe this. It's a game that your brain is playing. I want to lead you out of that so that you can be who you really are, Julie said, tightly gripping another hidden syringe just for safety. That's all I want, to be myself. But this isn't myself. This isn't my body. Please, Dr. Hoffman, you have to find Barnabas Collins. He'll tell you. I'm telling the truth. He'll tell you everything I'm saying is true, that he can help me get back to my time and make it all normal, but you can help me. I know you can. I just need you to believe me, India explained. Barnabas Collins, you mentioned this name last night. You said that I was married to him, but I am no longer married, and my late husband was not this Mr. Collins. Who is he? Doesn't he represent something to you? Julia wondered. No, Julia, please stop with the probing. This isn't some kind of psychiatric break I'm having. I can prove to you Barnabas is a real person, and just when you find him, he will know you. Just let me, please. I have to get back to my time with your help and Barnabas's powers. This can happen, India explained. Tell me more about this Barnabas, Julia asked, as the frustrated India began to open her mouth to at least slightly explain about her situation and just how Julia and Barnabas were connected. She suddenly realized Justin was not in the room with her. Wait, where's Justin? Where's my friend? India said, her head going back and forth over the layout of the room. Don't worry about Mr. Patterson. He's fine. He's gonna be just fine, Julia continued. Now tell me about Barnabas. No, not until you tell me what you did to Justin, India screamed. Miss Winters, Julia said, using Vicky's name. I did not want to do this, but you're leaving me no choice, Julia said, showing India a syringe in her hand. India began to panic, and she tried to move her tied-up body. Julia, which was obviously no use. From Julia. Julia was only inches from her arm and injected India with a new medication that would keep her in conscious fog-like state so that Julia could more easily ask her penetration questions of this bizarre story. As the drug slowly seeped into Vicky's flesh and tissue, she could feel herself drift off into a walking sleep. It was as if she was floating in a room of white clouds, like she was lifted out of the bed into the sky and was weightless. The drug had left her mentally open to anything Julia needed to know. Victoria, forgive me. India, who is Barnabas Collins? Julia said to India, who was staring straight up at the ceiling in her medically induced state. Who is Barnabas Collins? Julia repeated slowly again. Barnabas Collins, India said slowly. Yes, tell me who he is, Julia requested, not knowing she too was now dragging herself into an uncharted world. A vampire from the 18th century who is living at the Collinwood Mansion in Collinsport. He brought me here from another time, and he knows you. He was married. He knows you, Julia Hoppin. He knows you. He loved you, India said right before she passed out into a deep sleep. Julia was confused, a bit frightened as well. She had no idea what as Vicky was talking about. It fascinated her. This woman laying in the hospital bed was telling a story that Julia could tell she really truly believed. Everything she was saying was alarming and seemed so real to her. It could easily be some sort of strange dark fantasy of a very mentally ill woman. This case, should Julia solve it and heal her, could make Julia the most famous psychic care provider in the county, perhaps the world. To bring a woman back from a psychiatric break so deep and strange would launch headlines into every medical journal in the planet, with Julia center stage. It was exciting, enticing. Julia knew, however, that she had to check things out. She had to be sure this place called Collinsport wasn't all a figment of the young woman's ill mind. Julia got up quickly from her chair, allowing India to rest off the sedative she gave her, and reached for a staff phone that was attached to the room's wall that would instantly connect anyone in the room to the front desk. Nurse Finkel, can you check something for me? Check to see if you can find a place with the phone company called Collinsport. It's close by. You know it? You've heard of that town? And do you know of something called Collinwood? You've heard of it too? Haunted. What do you mean? Blood. Never mind. I don't think I need to hear any more. Thank you, nurse. Julia said, handing up the phone, shocked by the bizarre story the nurse had just told her of fables and tales of monsters and bloodthirsty creatures that lurked around the grounds of a Gothic mansion called Collinwood. It seemed Julia had bitten off more than she could chew, or at least more than she had anticipated when she first met the young woman she saw in dire need of psychiatric help. India was telling the truth, at least one version of it, and now Julia felt the hairs on her neck stand up. Barnabas Collins, she whispered it to herself as she watched India sleep. Maybe I need to take a trip to Collinsport. In a shimmering breakfast nook filled with sunlight and warmth from the day, and just off to the side of the large kitchen, Elizabeth sipped on a piping hot coffee with a basket of assorted bagels in front of her as David sat quietly next to her and looked over his book on nautical navigation. Roger and Caroline then walked in, giggling arm in arm as he greeted his sister and son respectively. Caroline, giddy with anticipation from her conversation with her paternal aunt Arabella, grabbed a bagel and smeared cream cheese over it and took a large bite. Anyone here from Aunt Bella this morning? Caroline asked as she poured her coffee. Elizabeth lifted an eyebrow and looked over her morning paper and responded with a hefty no. Really, I was expecting to hear her to be here this morning, Caroline replied. This morning? Why? Elizabeth asked. Oh, don't you see, Liz, your little girl has found a new role model. She's fitting right into kitten's lifestyle of the rich and infamous, Roger joked. Now, you're still my favorite uncle, Carolyn joked back. Carolyn, I would prefer you not run around with your aunt so much. She's got a lot of, well, baggage that I don't want you to become entangled with, Elizabeth replied as David looked on. Still, I was expecting her this morning. No call, nothing. Carolyn wondered. No, Elizabeth repeated. Carolyn frowned. That didn't seem right. Arabella had all these plans to rid the house of Vicky. Would she be late to something so important? Carolyn quickly drank her coffee and rushed out of the breakfast nook. She rushed out of the room and down a slightly curved hallway that had one wall made of glass that overlooked a quiet courtyard that had a lush green garden. The hallway led Carolyn into the foyer where she grabbed a coat from the hanger and made her way over to the Collinsport Inn to meet with Arabella so that the plot to take down Vicky could get moving. Then it dawned on her why rush. The plan needed to be a foolproof, and if Arabella didn't seem to be rushing, why would Carolyn? She decided to take her time before leading to the hotel. She's not coming, David said, back in the breakfast room. Who's not coming? Elizabeth said. Vicky? She hasn't gotten up yet, Elizabeth thought, not knowing Vicky wasn't home yet. She's not coming back, David said again. David, what are you mumbling about? Roger said, frustrated with his son. David didn't answer. He shyly turned his eyes back down to his nautical book. In a small two-bedroom home just off of a main street in town, a young handsome man was awakened by several painless slaps to the face. It was Justin Patterson, home safe in his own bed. His father, George Patterson, the town sheriff, sat on the bed awaiting the minute his son would open his eyes, and when he did open them, the shock of seeing his own bedroom surprised him. What happened? Justin said in a tired voice. That's what I'd like to know. Where were you? What were you doing up in Bangor at the hospital? George questioned. Where's India? Justin asked. India? Oh, the young woman you were with. Son, her name is Victoria Winters. That's what the ID in her purse said, and she's fine. I'm sure what I'm more concerned about is you. What were you doing up there? George questioned, his tone of voice seemingly angry. No, Pop, you don't understand. I can't be here. I have to find Indy and help her. We don't have lots of time. I have to get to her and help her back to where she belongs. You don't understand, Justin said, his voice ripping through his father's heart and with painful urgency. It was clear there was something wrong with Justin, at least in his father's eyes, but the truth was Justin and India were perfectly fine. They were living in a truth that was so bizarre and unbelievable to everyone around them. It seemed that they were both going insane, and the Pattersons family had lived and understood the terrifying truth of insanity before in its home. George got up from his son's bed, said Justin quickly sat up and turned around looking for his shoes. I wish this hadn't happened to you, son. I wish I could have made sure that you didn't get this way. I tried so hard to make sure you grew up as normal as possible, but I guess a man has to allow his son to grow and be who he's going to be, no matter how hard I push back on the inevitable, George said with his back turned to Justin as he picked up a framed photo of a young Justin and his mother. What are you talking about? Justin said, one foot in his shoe, the other still without its sock. Son, Dr. Hoffman told me you went up there to Bangor with that Winters girl, and we're talking nonsense about time travel and body snatching or something like that. She told me that you and that girl went there in the middle of the night and specifically for her and told her this wild story. Son, do you know Did you know it was coming? Did you feel it happen to you? George asked, his face swollen with tears. See it coming, Pop? What are you talking about? Everything that India had said was true. That's enough. Stop calling her that. You hear me? Stop it. Her name was not India. Her name is Victoria Winters, and she works for the Collins family. And if they've done something to you, if you got involved with someone up there at that house, and they did something to you to make you start acting this way, tell me, son. We can make it right. I'll march right up there right now and make sure those people fix this, George said. George Patterson was very familiar with the Collins family. He was very familiar with their way of life and how they would bring people into their homes, and the haunts of the past would slowly seep into the lives of the new people that worked in that house, like a dagger elixir that was slipped into a drink, or sorry, a dangerous elixir. I bet. Oh, uh, the Collins family was like a poison on anyone that came in contact with. George knew it. Justin knew it. Because George's wife and Justin's mother knew it too, Rebecca Patterson was once Elizabeth's personal secretary, the person who'd run all of Elizabeth's errands in town, as Elizabeth for years had refused to leave the confines of the mansion in hopes Paul would return. Many come and go from the house, and Rebecca did too, every day. That's how it all began, the beginning of Rebecca's mental breakdown. She'd come home after her time working at the estate, and she'd hear sounds, see shadows in her home. She began to feel the presence of someone or something following her everywhere she went. She began to lose herself in a strange darkness that floated around every member of the Collins family. It became her obsession, her passion, her one and only concern. Justin was young, only 8 years old, when Rebecca's obsession with the world of the dark and evil that Collins family was built on finally took its toll on her life and her mentality. On a very cold, icy morning in January, George took Rebecca to Wincliffe on a recommendation of a doctor in Collinsport. Rebecca never returned, and Justin never saw her again. And now, to George, it seemed like the same demons that took his wife were after his son. I really wish I could have protected you more, George said to his son, still only wearing one shoe. Pop, I just need some time to get all this straightened out with India. I know you don't believe me, but it's all true. You'll see, maybe you can help me. Maybe you can come to me to Colmwood and meet Barnabas, and he can tell you everything there is to know. But we have to go there at night. He sleeps in the day. Justin said sounded even more crazy as more of the truth came out of his mouth. Hearing this name Colmwood out of his own son's mouth, stunned like a slap to a very cold face, George shedding small droplets of tears down his round manly face, walked backwards towards the door to Justin's room. He thought he was seeing the end of his son's life. He thought he was seeing the final years of a young man who was about to break through to the other side of insanity, just like his mother did. But George would not let it happen. As George made his way to the room, Justin slowly followed his father, too unsure of what was about to happen. The bedroom door slammed shut and locked from the outside. George had set up a large beam across the door, while Justin slept, and locked all the windows with powerful bolts, all while Justin was under the drug Julie had given him. What are you doing? Let me out, Justin screamed and pounded on his bedroom door. George only cried in the dark hallway of his own home and stared at the door. Justin was pounding furiously on. He stood there in the dim morning light, surrounded by photos of his late wife and son in happier days, and cried. He would not let his son go mad. He would not let his son anywhere near anyone attached to the Collins family. Not now, not ever. For the love of his wife, whom he could not save, Justin could never leave his room again. Over in the living room, George picked up the phone and dialed a number that was given to him on a scrap of paper. Yes, Dr. Hoffman, I wanted to thank you again for having your orderlies bring my son home. It means a lot to me, given that you know Rebecca and you know how much she suffered, George said. Sheriff, it was my pleasure. I grew fond of Rebecca while she was here, and seeing her son succumb to something similar broke my heart. Just to be sure you give him medicine I have, just like I prescribed, Julie said, tangling the phone cord around her red painted fingernails. I will, George answered. Oh, Sheriff Juliet, can you tell me how to get to Collinwood? I'd like to make sure the family knows about Victoria. She's taken a turn for the worse, and I want to go in person to see her employers, Julia said, lying about India's condition, only wanting true directions to the mansion. George felt sick. He wanted no one to go to the Collins family. He would only go there when asked to an official duty, but gave Julie the directions anyway against his better judgment. Good luck, George said, handing up the phone. Julie looked down on her paper where she wrote the directions to the mansion and smiled. A very evil smile. She was about to embark on something that would change her life forever. She fantasized on what she would discover when she met this family, and just how famous her career would become when it all was said and done. But Julia truly had no idea what she was really in for. Carolyn arrived later later that evening to the Collinsport Inn, still expecting to find her aunt alive and well. Their plan to have Vicky killed ran on in Carolyn's brain despite her second thoughts. Carolyn figured Arabella was right. Vicky had to be dealt with. But it was strange that Arabella hadn't shown up at Collinwood as Carolyn expected. Carolyn, her coat now perfectly folded over her arm, stood at Arabella's hotel room door and knocked. No one came. She knocked again. Still nothing. Carolyn reached for the doorknob and turned it slightly, testing it. It was unlocked. Carolyn lifted a brow and continued to turn the golden door knob fully around, opening the door and let herself into a large, luxury furnished hotel suite that was in complete darkness despite the daytime hour. Aunt Bella, it's Carolyn. Are you up? Carolyn said from a small foyer whose walls blocked a view of the sleeping area. Carolyn waited for an answer, but there was silence, dead silence. The room felt stale and off. Carolyn sensed a strange energy in the part of the room where she stood that made the hairs on the back of her arms stand on end. It was an electric feeling, like something was swirling in the room, pushing past her like a jolt of invisible power. But yet there was nothing, just a vast, shadowy hotel room with no noise. Carolyn sighed and threw her coat of a plush white cheese that her coat missed and fell to the floor, revealing a small tag on the inside of the coat that Carolyn had never noticed before. It was an odd patch, pale pink, with the scribe on it. What the devil? She said, reaching down for her coat that had fallen. As she pulled at the tag inside the coat, she saw that it had the initials VW sewn into a colored black felt pen. They were Vicky's initials. Carolyn rolled her eyes. She had taken Vicky's coat by mistake. Annoyed that she was wearing her secret half-sister's coat, she rolled her eyes and continued into the rest of the hotel suite that from a shadowy first look seemed disheveled, out of sorts, frankly a mess. It was odd. Arabella wasn't the type to live in a messy room. Then suddenly Carolyn turned from the center of the suite living room and towards the two open French doors of the bedroom, saw what was making her feel on edge. There, lying on a pool of her own blood, was the dead body, Carolyn's beloved and scheming Aunt Arabella. Carolyn screamed and went over to her aunt on the floor. The immense shock flowed over Carolyn like a waterfall, causing her to completely overlooking the large red blood stain the man's body had left on the now empty bed. His body was gone, but Arabella remained. The wounds on Arabella's neck were strange. Two large gashes on the side of her neck. It was as if someone had used a tool of some sort to puncture those marks deep into her skin, draining Arabella of her blood. Carolyn's heart began to pound in her chest. How could this have happened? That what had even happened? Who would have done this? Why? Why would anyone want her dead like this? Carolyn quickly gathered herself up off the floor next to the dead body of her father's sister, still in shock, and rushed for the door. She grabbed Vicky's coat. Then suddenly something came to her mind. In the middle of her pain and grief, a wicked idea broke through. This would turn the tables again, but still keep Arabella's plot alive. This new idea, this new twist to the story that Arabella had crafted to out Vicky as a possible rival, was cold and calculated even for Carolyn's taste. But could she really do it? Could this new twist really work in Carolyn's favor? Carolyn grabbed on the coat, grasped onto the coat that marked VW with both hands. Carolyn took the coat that belonged to her secret half-sister, to her mother Elizabeth had lied about, and that Arabella had manipulated her into believing she was to honor her place in the Collins family fortune, and dipped it in Arabella's blood. The white fabric soaked up the red liquid like a sponge. The stain at first was ruby red, then it darkened as it seeped into the coat's lining. It was a horrible sight, but Carolyn kept telling herself that Arabella would want it this way. Arabella would have wanted Carolyn to take actions into her own hands, just as she was now, and make sure Vicky was destroyed before things could get worse for Carolyn. The only problem was all that Carolyn believed about Vicky replacing her in Elizabeth's will was a lie, something Arabella's sick jealousy mind concocted in her own head that she was later used to double-cross her niece and take Elizabeth's hush money payment and vanish. Now, even though Arabella was dead, her lies were not. They had taken on a life of their own and infected Carolyn like a disease of the mind, wrapping her sense of what was right and wrong, all the love and money of her own family. Carolyn's move in the bloody hotel room would change the course of events once again. Carolyn threw the now bloody coat to the floor and rushed out of the room, leaving it planted as evidence, as if Vicky was the last one to see Arabella alive, and then killed her. Vicky's coat, a dead body, and a lie would begin a terrible reality that no one would have ever foreseen. A murder plot that took a different turn. It would now implicate an innocent woman, and once again put Barnabas's plans to turn his wrongs into right upside down without even knowing. With every step forward, Barnabas would see a very steep step backwards into darkness. These things he could not escape, no matter how hard he tried, and now he had to clean it up again. Alright, that's the read-along. Here's a review. The scene setting is always really nice. I enjoy it. The characters are really good. Arabella's death, wow, that came quick. She died like um it's going to be interesting to see what Barnabas's next move is. You know, the title of this, and I want to get this in. Hold on a second, my phone's is Blood of an Heiress. You know, we say that, you know, Blood of an Heiress to me, I don't think that's talking about Vicky's blood, you know, Vicky being the, you know, Carolyn trying to set Vicky up for murder and then it getting pinned on Vicky. To me, from my reader's perspective, this is about the blood that is now on Carolyn's hands, that she is going forward with her own form of plan, and she really has become her own twisted sense of justice and reality in this. I do think that it's going to be interesting because what's going to happen when Carolyn when it gets, well, wait, she can't be in two places at once. She was out cold. How could she murder this woman? That's what Carolyn doesn't know. But that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And just Barnabas's reaction to everything, Julia, Carolyn, and I wonder if Barnabas is going to go on a killing spree. Now, I don't know, but I really enjoy this. The characters in this are just a lot of fun, and they're fun to read and to see the interactions. And to me, this is what Dark Shadow should be. Obviously, it's very well written. John Philip Bencourt does a great job. I love these very much. Huge thank you to him. He writes these. This is just great as a fan, as a DS fan, to just be able to read. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything. I did Justin Patterson and Justin's history was a big reveal. We knew Justin had some sort of past with mental hospitals, and we find that out here that his mom Rebecca was in a mental hospital, Wincliffe, and Julia was one of the doctors or the doctor. But and I really love George and his reaction. The father-son reaction was very good. The character interactions are always very good and interesting in this. Link's gonna be in the description box, guys. Definitely go check this out. It's the Return of Dark Shadows. You can also get him at Return Shadows on Twitter. And you get him John Philip Betancourt on Facebook. Go check him out. Very good. See you guys next. See you guys on the next video. I was gonna say see you next week, but no, I got another video I can do. All right, see ya.